3, 2, 1. What's happening, guys? This is Logan Robinson from Here the Spear, presented to you by NoleGameday.com. We're here live on a just rough 2024 season. I can't even say wonderful or fantastic anymore until probably once this season is over. But I've had a great day. Beautiful weather here, down here in the Tampa area. Actually got to go see a game on Monday night. Didn't turn out the way that I was thinking it would, and definitely some bad things happening there at the end with Chris Godwin going down in that Buccaneers versus Ravens matchup. But still, nonetheless, we're here. We still got a team to cover. It's not going to stop. We're going to be down in Miami this upcoming weekend. Me and D-Lou, along with our staff writer and editor, Tommy Meir, will be down there covering this Florida State versus Miami matchup. It's crazy that we are in a rivalry matchup, and almost like all of social media and FSU Twitter, it's just dead at the moment. Doesn't seem like we're in one of the top college rivalry weekends at all, gentlemen. So we're going to be giving our thoughts on this game. We'll be giving our score predictions too. We're going to talk about an interview that Mike Norvell did with ESPN, talking about the current state of the program, him not evaluating this team right going into this year. We're going to talk a little bit of some practice observations, and we're going to jump into some NFL Noles, and we're going to talk Florida State versus Miami. With me this evening is Austin Veazey, our lead basketball writer at NoleGameday.com, and down below is our editor-in-chief, D-Lou. Gentlemen, it's Miami week. Wake up. How we doing?
It's good to be back. And yeah,
it's
a time.
Good to be back together.
But yeah, now we're going back to, like you said, Logan, going back down to Miami to go to Hard Rock Stadium after our last experience there was so fulfilling.
Wasn't great. We were there for the Orange Bowl massacre, but wouldn't think that we'd be going back down there to Hard Rock Stadium and it being where Florida State has only won one game on the season. None of us on here, nor any of the fans, or I don't know, anybody across the country, nationally, everybody isn't in shock by this. And it seems like Mike Norvell on the sideline too is also in shock. It seems like it's a weird feeling. We were expecting maybe this would be where these two teams would be fighting for a top 3 spot, top 2 spot, or the top spot in the ACC. But right now it's just Miami doing that. Florida State is not in any of that discussion, which is wild to think of. And, we're preparing hopefully to go back to Charlotte, go back up there and visit Veazey. But sorry, Veazey, we won't be seeing you this season.
Not this year.
You sure you don't want to go back to South? You don't want to go to South Bend, Veazey, and that freezing cold?
I'm positive.
Jesus? Okay.
I'm positive. I'll be in Jacksonville that weekend watching a better football team in the Minnesota Vikings, and I will have a much better time doing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, y'all had a good game this last weekend. Lost, but
it was a fun game.
Right? Yeah, sure that
you can
battle with the best of them. So, the Vikings have a bright future ahead. Detroit Lions are nasty. They're nasty this upcoming season. Tough team to beat. I think they're one of the best in the league this year so far. But let's go and get started, gentlemen. As always, you can listen to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that like button. We deeply, really would appreciate it a ton. I know we're going to have a lot of Miami fans in here, so I'm just going to go ahead and say hello. But if you're here, hit the like button. You're probably going to get the win. Just get the like button. I mean, I think 50% of our viewership on this show is going to be Miami fans. So welcome in to Here the Spear. Let's get started. I want to go to this interview. Veazey threw this at us during the production meeting, and Mike Norvell talking with ESPN staff writer David Hale. Sit down with him and talking about the current state of the program, what happened going into the season, and some misevaluations. Obviously, we've been talking about it for the last month and a half, almost 2 months now, about misevaluating this entire team going into the season. Norvell opened up saying there's clearly been mistakes. A million people can figure out there's a problem, but ultimately, it's about the solutions. It's what you are doing to fix it and make it better. It's a daily process for us. We're staying the course of the improvements that we can control right now. and we're going to continue to help this program get back to where we know it can be and where it had been before. Obviously, to speaking about their 13-0 regular season record. Also, Mike talked about some early struggles in this game. He said we've not been able to handle some of those challenges or some of the results very well this year. Handling the first game, coming off of what happened a season ago, not playing the way we were capable of playing early in the year. The mental part of it has fallen on us, where guys have pressed and maybe not produced to their potential. That's something you've got to work through. He also jumped in and talked about Miami, this upcoming matchup with Cam Ward, and the success that Mario Cristobal is having this season with them being ranked number 6 in the country. He said, I know our record is not anything that anybody's excited about, but we have an opportunity to go play this one. And for us, it's going to be the best of who we are. And we are going to do everything we can to be victorious in this game. Just a little bit further here at the end, Mike Norvell talking about the future, talking about this upcoming offseason, which we've already transitioned a lot of this podcast and going and looking ahead at 2025. He ended off this interview saying, I definitely believe in where this program is going to go. I believe with the work our guys are pouring into it. I'm hoping to see that great step this week. If I felt them letting up, I would tell you. But I don't see that. They care about each other. They believe what is ahead. I believe what these guys can do and can achieve, and now we have to go get it done. That's our focus. Thoughts on this? A lot of these quotes here, because we always get the practice interviews. We always get the instant post-game stuff from Mike Norvell, and it hasn't been so pretty whatsoever, but definitely got some more insight of, calling out, their staff and calling himself out for misevaluating this entire team going into 2024.
Yeah, I guess it's good to see some realism, because it sounds like with the way that things have gone so far, Mike Norvell and this coaching staff have been able to do a little bit of self-reflection and, realize that there were some mistakes made over the offseason with some of the acquisitions that Florida State brought in through the transfer portal. And then, just the way that they saw the team in the spring and in the preseason. It hasn't been the football team that we heard this coaching staff talk about before the ball kicked off in Ireland. It's been a major disappointment. I mean, this team has went, we can beat a dead horse all we want, but below expectation. It's, arguably the worst team in the history of Florida State football. I mean, it's simply been that bad. And, now that they're starting to realize these mistakes, these missteps, you have to hope that they can take the action to go about and begin correcting it.
It's crazy how he went from before the season calling us the fastest, strongest, whatever else hyperbole he wants to use team he's had at Florida State. And it's been by far the most disappointing product he's put on the field. But at the same time, I feel like this is the first real quote we've gotten him all season. Dustin has been very aware of how much I hate coach speak. I rant about it in our Discord. I can't stand it. So I didn't go to the press conference following the Duke game because I just didn't want to hear the exact same things we've been hearing all season. This is the first time I'm like, hey, he's actually saying something that I think he believes he's saying. Now, could I live without the "we have an opportunity ahead of us" quotes? Absolutely, because the team is 1-6. The opportunities don't matter. But at least I can feel he can tell that he messed up, and that's the first sign of that we've seen this season, really.
I think you like hearing that in October. I mean, definitely not because where the team's at, but just right now with getting ready for 2025, I think it's good to hear, okay, I'm taking ownership here. I understand. Yes, we did misevaluate this team. And it wasn't just us. It was everybody that covers this team on the ground and also too nationally, I know it was just going into the first game. Nick Saban saw a lot in this team as well going into it. But then, of course, just a few weeks later, he takes some shots at some of the transfer portal guys that left Alabama to come to Florida State. Just this team and the coaching staff didn't do a really good job all over the place. And that's something we've talked about plenty on here and don't want to just keep beating a dead horse. And I'm glad that Mike Norvell, though, right now is saying, yeah, we've got to look ahead. And he does think this program can get back to where it needs to be. And where it needs to be is where you had a great season in 2023 having that record, reaching the ACC championship, winning the ACC championship, and giving yourself a damn good chance to make that college football playoff. And I'm glad you brought that up, BZ, because we heard a lot about this team. We heard a lot about the physical ability, the speed that a lot of these guys were going to be bringing to the table that we're going to hopefully help facilitate DJ in this offense. But everything is on the shoulders of Mike Norvell right now because of right now your biggest problem is offensively and how atrocious it is. It's the worst in college football, and you can't get down the field. There's too many mistakes, discipline, penalty. It's just a lot of bad things. Depth, when we talk about depth, that go to the offensive line, there's no one in there to take someone's place and where it looks better. It's just all over the place offensively, and that's on the shoulders of Mike Norvell, and he now has to make some big-time adjustments as we head into the offseason, which we're not even close to yet. But he did say in that interview, he thinks that what they put out there on Saturday night in prime time is going to be the best 2024 squad.
Let me just stop you there. What is the best version of this team that we'll see? It's still not going to be a good football team. The best team,
25 points.
The best team Florida State could put out is still a below average football team compared to what we've seen all season.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, going back to Logan's point about Nick Saban and, the national media and everything, Nick Saban, he went to one Florida State practice. And I mean, even the local beat, we attend a large majority of the practices, but in the spring and in the preseason, we're held out of those scrimmages, which is obviously a very important piece when it comes to evaluating the football team. Mike Norvell, his coaching staff, whether it's on field, off field, they saw every moment, every practice, every lifting session, everything throughout the offseason, the conditioning program. And, still there was all of this hype and, like Austin was saying, all of the bold words that were said about this Florida State team. And I think the hype, if it had been tempered a little bit, it wouldn't be hitting fans as hard as it is currently, because
I don't know. Because the team was 13-0. You can't go
this
from 13-0.
It's a completely different team. It's a completely different team. And they made a lot of changes. If they would have made it seem like it was more of a retooling year instead of, we're chasing a national championship, a playoff berth, another ACC title, I don't know if it stings as bad. It's still not where you want to be. Like I said, it's the worst football team in FSU program history. But with what they were expected to be and an AP top 10 team, it's arguably one of the worst failures that we've seen in the modern age of the sport.
Too, it's not even just what you're seeing out there product-wise, but the discipline factor, too. That's something that I've been very concerned about just because that's just not the way things are ran under Mike Norvell. Unless, Dustin, you're hiding it from us and Mike isn't hard on these guys and making him finish plays and making sure he's tucking the ball, making sure that you're not having these penalties. He brings refs out to practices. Unless you're lying to us, he's been the same way in the practices, and then on Saturdays doesn't seem to be the same way, and that's why we're seeing the record that they have. But just so many mistakes that just continue to harm this team, and that they don't like success. You have a couple tries, and you're okay, this offense is starting to kick here a little bit. Here we go, and you just know in your head as a fan or someone covering the team that a mistake is about to happen, and you're about to go backwards. Just get ready for it, and that happens on a week-to-week basis, and that's just something we're not used to in covering Mike Norvell. And I want him to talk about that as well. What happened to? I know people want the fire on the sideline and everything, and whatnot. They want him to see, go after players, and I agree. I want to see that too. There is definitely some players this year that I think deserve where Mike Norvell should be getting up there and showing discipline. And I'm sure, there's things that happen behind the scenes, but when you're in the game, it sets accountability across the whole board as a team. And it gives some sort of presence as a head coach to show that you have that, I don't know, you're the man that runs the ship. And I think it shows on the sideline more for definitely some of these younger guys, but that hasn't been the case this season. I don't know where that's gone to, and that's just something that has been totally off to me.
And I will say, as far as practice, I feel like Mike Norvell is the same guy. I mean, he's out there pushing these guys. When a mistake is made, he's getting over there to correct that. And sometimes that takes a couple choice words in the process or a different attitude. But he's bringing that intensity, and you saw the same thing today. At least from my perspective, Coach Atkins, showing some fire out there. The coaching staff, I mean, they're still dialed in. But yeah, I will say, the attitude on game day, at least from Norvell, it hasn't been what we've seen in years past. And like he's talked about throughout the season, what he's seen on the practice field isn't showing up on game day. It's just, you can kind of say the same thing about his personality.
Mhm. Let's jump over real quick. Nothing too crazy here, but a little bit of some practice observations. We'll stick strictly to some of these younger players because we are going to see a lot of these guys moving forward in the second half of the season. And I just want to stay primarily here in the quarterback room because we got to see Luke get his playing time. Mike Norvell actually talked about Luke after the practice, I believe today, saying, I think Luke getting his first game experience, I thought there were some good things that he was able to learn from, some good things that he did, but now you get into a new week, a new plan, new things that you're going to see. It's about the consistency of handling all that might be thrown at you. I think he's definitely growing up extremely fast, and I'm pleased with his progress. Can you give us a little bit of insight from what you've seen from these two quarterbacks, from Brock Glenn and Luke? I saw that multiple times connecting with some of these younger receivers like Elijah Moore. Hakeem Williams had one of the biggest catches of the day. It's youth movement. It's moving forward in that direction, and just interested to see. And I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see both quarterbacks on Saturday against Miami.
It wouldn't surprise me if that's kind of the par for the course here moving forward into these final games, especially playing Luke for an extended period against Duke. And, I know statistically he probably didn't end up with the success that Florida State wanted, but he put him in position to make some plays. And, if his playmakers help him out, we're talking about probably a couple more points for FSU. But yeah, I mean, as far as practice, it was a pretty good week overall for these two. I mean, they did a good job putting the offense in the right position for success. Didn't have a lot of turnover woes, which is certainly, good after what we saw on Friday night. I will say, the most success in these practices has probably come, at least, we were out there on Monday and Wednesday, but it's probably come in like the 1-on-1s, the 7-on-7 scenarios. It's been a little bit tough in team drills just because the offensive line, has struggled the last couple of weeks. Obviously there's some injuries piling up there, and Florida State is doing some shuffling along the front, and that hasn't always led to success in practice. But yeah, like you said, I mean, connecting a lot with these younger receivers. I think Luke, he's continuing to come along, and whenever that dude gets in a rhythm, I mean, he's throwing a really nice football. Can put it in harm's way every now and then, but he's someone who's not afraid to take those risks. And I think I'd rather have a quarterback like that who's going to go out there and try and make the play rather than too hesitant to do so. And I will say, looking back into his first game action, I thought the game, first time he's ever touched the field, he comes in a really tough scenario, already trailing on the road. Brock being benched after those turnovers, put in a tough spot. Thought the game, it was moving a little bit fast for him. Had some moments where he hesitated, but then there were some of those bright spots as well. So as he continues to get more and more snaps, I think he's just going to settle in like we've seen in the practice setting. He was probably a little erratic in the preseason, but as he got more and more comfortable, you just start to see more consistent performances. I think the same thing could translate over to game days. And then, I mean, Brock has done a pretty good job. Both of these guys can air it out. We've seen some deep connections. And as far as the guys catching them, Elijah Moore had a pretty good week of practice. He did lose a fumble today, but I mean, making some tough catches out there. Floyd McCoy and BJ Gibson, it seems like Florida State, they've got a pretty good trio of true freshman wide receivers. Obviously, Camden Fryer recovering from an injury, but I mean, those three, they look like hits, and Florida State, they're going to have to keep them around in December. And, with that, Landon Thomas and Amari Williams, I mean, they continue to impress in practice. And Florida State, I know it's not looking good right now, but they definitely have some young pieces on offense that they can continue to build around moving forward. And, hopefully we just continue like we're seeing with the quarterbacks. Hopefully now we see that trickle down, and it happened with the tight ends in that Clemson game and last game as well. But if that can trickle down to the wide receivers and we get some more LaWayne McCoy, Elijah Moore, I'd love to see BJ Gibson get sprinkled in as well. I'd be interested to see if that can help Florida State be a little bit more efficient in the passing game.
That's what we'll talk about when we get to the Miami preview at the end of the show. But I think I would be really interested in seeing LaWayne McCoy get some more opportunities on air. Yes, he's been in the game a little bit, but I just want to see him get the ball in his hands, get him kind of going a little bit, because we've heard so much about him in practices, and the same thing with Elijah Moore. Let's take some opportunities there if we can. And going back to Luke, you take those shots, yes, you're going to have the risk and whatnot, but if you do have some playmakers, like Mike Norvell always presses that they're recruiting playmakers to make plays, you take shots with your quarterback that showed you some really good signs that he can get that ball downfield. And that's something that we saw very early on whenever he was in high school, that he has a really nice deep ball, and it just looks natural to him. And that shot to Kentron, just going back and looking at it throughout the week, it was absolutely gorgeous. And too, that throw to Hakeem, he's just got that natural ability as a passer. And, if he has to utilize his legs, he will. But I think too, fitting an offense behind that is something that I think Mike Norvell and Tony Tokar's Florida State's quarterbacks coach, they're looking forward to doing. They just did not expect it, of course, to be this early on from him. And that's why we're not over here going to be grading Luke and, oh my goodness, ball, that kind of stuff. There's no reason to do any of that, because we got to, have a reality check here. This is something where, you were not expecting to have this young kid come into a game. But I do think that we will see both these quarterbacks, and if it's not planned, I hate to say it, but, Miami is gonna be bringing a lot of pressure to Brock Lynn, and you mix that in with Florida State's offensive line. Don't think it's going to be pretty. Yeah, I would just like to see some of these younger guys out there, like you said, Gibson, LaWayne McCoy, more opportunities for him. I don't know if I really want him at punt return. I don't really want LaWayne McCoy back at punt return. I think I've got my answer there, at least not yet. I'd rather give another shot to someone else and trust to see if they make any kind of changes there. I just don't think he's the answer in that position. But wide receiver wise, I'd like to see that on air, get him some shots.
And just to finish off with Luke here, I was remembering a couple of things while you were talking, but beginning of practice today, Florida State did some 2-minute situational work, and he led a touchdown drive. Got to the third down. He launched one out to Elijah Moore on the sideline, and true freshman made a good catch and got out of bounds, and then came back 2 plays later, opposite sideline, hit Elijah Moore, where he made a terrific one-handed catch, stayed in bounds between 2 defenders, and got into the end zone for a successful 2-minute drive there. And then later on at the end of practice, he drilled a throw to the sideline on a similar concept to what we saw Brock Lynn throw that pick six on against Duke on Friday night. It was a hell of a throw. I mean, you're talking about that out route to the sideline from the far hash. That's an NFL caliber throw. And I mean, he absolutely hit it, and BJ caught it and almost drilled me. Like I was sitting there right there, almost got smacked. But either way, I mean, it was a heck of a play. And, the way that he's continuing to make these strides in practice, it says a lot about what his future could be at Florida State. And then Brock Lynn, we can't forget about Brock Lynn, just continuing to sit there and fight. These guys, I think we're kind of seeing it now. This is the beginning of this quarterback battle that's going to go into 2025. And, we'll see which one of these guys is up for the challenge at the end of it.
What would you like to see, VZ? Do you want to see 2 quarterbacks in this game on Saturday, or your game plan is stuck? You stick with Brock, and of course, like we saw in the Duke game, if shit hits the fan, then you throw in Luke and give him some opportunities.
Yeah, I think it's got to be like the Duke game. I'm not a huge fan of 2 quarterback systems. We've talked about it a lot in the past, even with rotating offensive linemen or defensive linemen. If there's a rhythm going, there's no reason to mess it up. But yeah, if it's like the Duke game where your quarterback has 3 turnovers in 3 plays, yeah, it makes sense to make that change and see what you got with Luke. But at least for the first half, I would stick with Brock, see what he can get working. It's not a great Miami defense, as we'll talk about here in 20 minutes or so, but maybe they could finally get something going. But I don't see a reason to substitute quarterbacks if you really need to. I mean, the old adage is if you have two quarterbacks, you really have none. So
yeah, we'll get into this Miami preview here in just a minute. Before we do that, though, let's jump through some quick hitters and the NFL side of things. Busy weekend for some former Seminoles. Let's start off with number one here. Keon Coleman going off for the Buffalo Bills. He had 7 targets, 4 receptions, 125 receiving yards, his first 100-yard career game. He's actually now number 4 in rookie receiving yards, ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr., who was the first wide receiver taken in this last year's NFL draft. But it seems like him, Josh Allen, as expected, are clicking. You add Amari Cooper also into the mix there for the Bills, opens up some more space for Keon Coleman to do his thing. But really for Keon, as you can see, 4 receptions, 125 yards. He was doing a lot of things after the catch and was explosive and made the best of his opportunities. But yeah, the Buffalo Bills are absolutely loving what they're seeing from Keon Coleman right now as he's starting to get this flow going.
Really impressive. I was wondering how things would shift in Buffalo with them acquiring Amari Cooper and, how that would relate to Keon Coleman's targets. But then he comes out and has the best game statistically of his young NFL career. And, maybe Amari Cooper, him being on the team, is only going to open things up further for Keon to flourish.
And you haven't even mentioned the biggest thing. He helped Amari Cooper get his touchdown.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw that clip, but Josh Allen went to the line, changed the call. Amari looks at Keon, goes, "What am I doing?" And Keon just kind of does like a little hand motion, and it's a touchdown to Amari Cooper.
Yeah, he's out there being a coach. A little bit, just go straight. But yeah, no, that was cool to see that, and Keon doing his thing. And I think they put it in our newsletter, which you guys will put it's in the description down below. If you guys want to go sign up, we'll have some more information on that starting next week for you guys here on Hear the Spear. But in our newsletter, there was I think it was a sponsored thing with booking.com, and there was a funny video of him.
That was funny
going
too.
around touring around Buffalo, but then also to where were they? It was at the falls. What is it called?
Niagara Falls.
And he was just being his usual self. He don't really have to act or anything. It's just Keon being Keon. And it was a good timing to release that ad with him. But let's go to some big other news here. Jameis Winston was named a starting quarterback in the NFL once again. As we all know, was the backup to Deshaun Watson for the Cleveland Browns. Now named today the starting quarterback. Deshaun Watson rupturing his Achilles, so now he's thrusted into that starting position. He wasn't the backup, though, in the game against Cincinnati, where Deshaun got hurt this last weekend. There was some controversy of why Jameis Winston wasn't the backup. DTR was the backup for this game. Jameis Winston was the emergency quarterback as QB3 on the depth chart. And, I can ramble on about the Cleveland Browns ownership, but I think everyone on here, along with across the country, just know how horrific that organization has and is still currently being ran. But here we are, ladies and gentlemen. I think we predicted this before the season even began, but we had some contemplation that maybe Jameis Winston would be the star. We actually talked about it, I'm pretty sure, in last week's episode. Yeah.
Your dream.
I literally was saying Jameis Winston, I think, is going to be starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. And maybe I just need to start manifesting these kind of things more. Florida State is putting up 30 points on Saturday.
That's not going to help. I'm
taking more than that.
But you take that as a win any day of the week. 30 points. There might be a full-on celebration in Tallahassee for that. I'll get the parade going. But gentlemen, Jameis Winston, it's gonna be fun. You know what? His first game is going to be against the Ratbirds and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, divisional matchup. But it is going to be at home for the Browns. It's gonna be fun.
Well, first off, Logan, please don't include me in any of your dreams/wishes because I'd like to keep my Achilles. But yeah, it's kind of messed up. I made that joke about Deshaun Watson last week, and now he's out for the season.
Oh, but now it's funny.
You can't deny fate, though. I mean, like you were saying, Jameis was the emergency quarterback. They had Dorian Thompson-Robinson dressed over him. Deshaun gets hurt. DTR goes in. DTR gets hurt. And then that's what allowed Jameis to enter the game. And Jameis actually ends up throwing the only passing touchdown for Cleveland in that loss to Cincinnati. Converted to a 2-point conversion as well. But obviously, Jameis has been looking for this opportunity. He was hoping it would happen with the Saints. And then, he had the torn ACL in 2021 that ended that season. And they brought in Derek Carr, and it was kind of hard for him to get on the field since. So we'll see. I mean, a veteran in the league, 10-year vet, it seems like he's got the support of the Cleveland locker room. And Kevin Stefanski has been a pretty good offensive coach throughout his career. We'll see how it goes. I know Cleveland has made some trades, moved on from a couple of their playmakers out wide. We talked about Amari Cooper earlier in the show. So, I mean, it's a tough situation, but Jameis time.
Well, to this Stefanski point real quick, I don't think he's calling plays anymore. I'm pretty sure he announced today that, he's given up play calling to Ken Dorsey.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
Ken Dorsey, the GOAT. He played
I
at
don't
Miami.
know. I don't know if he's the
What?
GOAT.
I'm just joking.
Yeah.
The call on that Jameis touchdown was hilarious because the announcer's like, Jameis doesn't have anywhere to go. And the next thing you know, he's throwing a football 8 feet in the air and the receiver goes and gets it. It's just a typical Jameis play that he made something out of nothing. It'll be good to see him starting again. And hopefully this is a good opportunity for him to start somewhere else next year.
Mm-hmm. Interested to see what they can do. Like you just said, he lost Amari Cooper, but he still have Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb came definitely a little rusty in the first game as expected, but still, I mean, it's Nick Chubb. If he can figure it out and get things going there, I mean, look at what the Cleveland Browns could do a little bit with Jameis getting going in the passing game. That could open up a lot of things, but, Nick Chubb's a damn good running back, and I have a lot of respect for him. That nasty injury he has to come back from, but starting to get that rust off a little bit. Interested to see, but it's going to be a pretty brutal matchup going against those Ravens. Got to see those guys in person with Lamar Jackson, Rashad Bateman, obviously Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers. Like it's Mark Andrews. They absolutely diced up Todd Bowles and ate him alive. It was not even funny to watch. It sadly did feel like I was watching another FSU game, but just reverse on the other side. And but we'll be watching. So I know a lot of FSU fans. I can't pull for Cleveland. I pull for Jameis to have a good game, but I don't really have to worry about the Cleveland Browns right now.
So you should root for them in this game because if you want some space in the division, you need them to beat the Ravens.
100%. Yes. So
Jameis will beat the Steelers later this year. Guaranteed.
I can't wait. That'll be so funny.
Yeah, you manifesting that? You dreaming about that?
Guaranteed. Hopefully it doesn't take anyone's Achilles, but guaranteed.
God. Yeah, I'm going to have to talk with TJ Watt and make sure he kind of chills out a little bit off the edge to J-Boo. Let's run through these real quick, though. The edge guys showed out. Josh Sweat, 9-yard sack on Daniel Jones. Brian Burns, also a 9-yard sack on the other side. These two teams playing each other got a 9-yard sack on Jalen Hurts. And then Jared Verse had 5 quarterback hurries against the Raiders. But, Josh Sweat getting back into his groove after a really good 2023 season. And Brian Burns is having a phenomenal season. I know he got hurt in this game. I don't have an update in around him. I think he's fine, but he was limping off. Yeah. If
your source didn't give you an update?
Who didn't?
Your source?
I don't have a source in New York. I don't got nobody there.
Oh.
No sources there. I got to work on that. But, Brian Burns is that D-line. I'm going to have to be facing him this up. Actually, I do need a Brian Burns update because the Steelers play Monday Night Football against the New York Giants, and I need Rusty Russ to stay healthy.
I'm sorry, but whether Brian Burns is there or not, it's not going to matter.
I know the Steelers are going to dominate. You're right.
You're right. You're 100% correct. I mean, Giants are pitiful.
Any update?
I'm still looking. I haven't found a Giants injury report yet.
Okay. Are we predicting Jameis Winston to get the upset on the Ratbirds?
No, I am not.
I'm
No,
sorry.
yeah.
Baltimore's offense is
Yeah.
they're ridiculous right now, man.
Yeah, no, they are. It's very tough. I'd like to see Jameis Winston get into a click, get going a little bit, and try to get this offense going. But it's going to be hard to keep up with that offense. It is, like you're saying, ridiculous in how they're playing this season. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
We have no
Well,
update. But
No Brian Burns
Yeah,
up there.
yeah, no Brian Burns update, but I will say on the Jared Verse front, elite matchup tomorrow with him going up against Christian Darrisaw of the Vikings, who is probably the best left tackle in the NFL right now. That'll be really fun to watch between those two.
Ooh, that'll be fun. No, maybe I'm looking at here. I'm looking for Brian Burns. I think he walked off on his own power.
Yeah, they haven't released an injury report yet for this week.
What? They have to. Wait. Oh, wait. Your game is when Thursday. Wait.
I'm talking about the Giants game. They don't play them till Monday, right?
Oh yeah, I was thinking like Jared Verse. Yeah,
Or is
that's
it-
right.
They don't put stuff out till like Friday,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's right. So that's why all these worlds are colliding, gentlemen. A lot going on the NFL side of things. All right, let's jump into some Florida State versus Miami. Why don't we?
Oh God.
Just like Austin has in his tag here under his name, we need a miracle. We need a miracle here.
Look, can I start? Can I start with some optimism? Let's do this.
All right, yeah, you start with
into
optimism, and then I'll give you a reality check.
Okay.
All right, let's do that. You go ahead.
Optimism. The
Okay.
top-ranked team that Florida State has played each year under Mike Norvell, they've at least played close. If you go back to the UNC game, that first time when they came into Bill Campbell ranked 5th, they won. They played Notre Dame close at home next year. Then they played Clemson close at home. They're at least able to stay close in the best games of the year. They may not always win, but they can at least get close.
Sounds like those all came at home, though. Sorry.
Well, the LSU game was neutral, if you want to count last year's game. And there's another one. I'm forgetting one of the games. But anyways, Miami is wearing all black uniforms. Do you know the last time they wore all black uniforms?
Was that wasn't the Georgia Tech game, was it?
It was the Georgia Tech game.
It was the Georgia Tech game on Thursday night last year.
And do you know the last time they wore alternate uniforms against Florida State?
I don't know because it's Adidas and they're all atrocious. So
the Jalen Ramsey game or the Dalvin Cook breakout game in 2014, 10 years ago.
Oh.
So I'm just saying, there's a little history on Florida State's side here that they could do something. They could.
Mm-hmm. Looking for some spiritual miracles.
Absolutely.
What we're looking at here. Let's look at some stats here on the Miami Hurricanes before we get going. Number one. Oh, they're number one in points per game. They're at 47 per game there. Also, 2 yards per game, 582. That's their average at the moment. They have an average of 38 pass attempts per game. That's top 20 in college football. Florida State secondary is going to have a strong night in Coral Gables. And then they're number one in passing yards per game, 399. And then looking over at their defense, Miami is only allowing under 100 yards per game at 98.7. They're a top 15 rushing defense this year. So there's some just fun stats there, and they're all. I mean, it's a number.
Their defense is not that good, though. If we're being completely realistic, like their last 4 games, they're allowing almost 400 yards per game of total offense. Some of that's been through the air, some of that's been on the ground. Their defense is average at best. I'm not sitting here saying Florida State's gonna be able to take advantage of that. Let's not get words twisted.
Yeah, don't get too crazy here.
But I honestly think this is the worst defense Florida State has played this year.
Well, I don't know if it matters just because of that Miami offense. I mean, man, they've been just so potent this year. I mean, just ridiculous. And a lot of it is obviously on the back of Cam Ward, but they've got some really talented skill players. And you look along the offensive line, I think they're giving up less than 2 sacks per game and only about 3 or 4 negative plays per game. So, I mean, they've done a good job of staying ahead of the chains. Florida State's defense, obviously, not so much in the Duke game, but looking back the last couple of weeks before that, struggled immensely to get teams off the field on 3rd down. And now you're going up against Miami, The number one third down offense in the country, converting over 60% of the time, which is absolutely ridiculous. And, have put up at least 38 points in every game so far. I know the last three, it's been a little back and forth there, but they've done enough to continue to stay undefeated. And I'm interested to see if it continues on Saturday night because they've just been absolutely hot. And we'll see if Florida State coming off that game against Duke. Duke, not a stellar offense, obviously. Maybe that'll give them a little bit of momentum. But either way, I mean, we're talking about a defense that gave up 500 yards to Clemson a couple of weeks ago, and this Miami offense is a lot better than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Cam Ward's having a season, gentlemen. It's crazy that we were talking about him this offseason. Maybe there's some contemplation that maybe he would have been Florida State's starting quarterback, but got DJ, and this is where you're at. But, man, could you imagine Cam Ward? I mean, as we've learned, though, wouldn't be the savior of everything. Maybe he is. Maybe he would be.
He
but
would not be.
Definitely offensive line-wise.
He'd save a lot.
He'd say, yeah, no, he would say, just like Jordan Travis. I guess you could say, he definitely would have. There'd be more wins on the board for Florida State, but the offensive line for Florida State, atrocious. That's why you have to have a guy like Jordan Travis, right?
I mean, he turns the ball over. He puts it in some really bad positions at times, but he does a great job of staying alive in the pocket, continuing to keep his eyes downfield, doing everything to make the play up until the last second possible. And it's created a lot of highlights for Miami so far through 7 games. And, that's a big reason that Cam Ward now among the front runners for the Heisman Trophy. And, you look at Saturday night, a rivalry game against Florida State. This is a potential, he's already had a couple, but maybe another Heisman moment for Cam Ward to stamp.
Yeah, he's above 2,500 yards in passing. 68.7 in completion percentage, 24 touchdowns,
which I believe is first in the country.
Wow. Wouldn't be a shocker. 24 touchdowns and 5 interceptions there for Miami starting quarterback. And of course, got some receiving targets as well that he's been able to utilize a ton with Restrepo and Horton there at wide receiver. Restrepo actually nearing 700 yards.
I think the easiest way to put it is Cam Ward has 24 touchdown passes and Florida State has 11 total touchdowns.
That's a good summary. That's like ChatGPT summarized Florida State's offense to just Miami and what Cam Ward's doing. It's not pretty. It's not fun. It's you think we're gonna be down there, in Miami, D-Lou, and I'm wondering too, we were down there for the Georgia game, whole different crowd. This one is going to be, has it been sold? Is it sold out yet? Still never going to sell out. It ain't never going to sell out.
I'm not sure, but I expect to see a lot more Miami fans at this home game than normal.
Yeah, no, there's definitely going to be. I don't see a lot of FSU.
This is a game, where FSU traditionally travels very well. We'll be looking for the garnet and gold on Saturday night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's risky business going in.
Searching. Bring out the binoculars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I don't think there's going to be a lot of the FSU fan base there, gentlemen. It's going to be heavy Miami. That's another for these young quarterbacks. They're going into a situation here. You go back to, Brock Glenn. He was at home against Clemson, fierce opponent there, but then you went on the road against Duke. It's Duke. Veazey was in attendance for that. There was maybe 200 people there and 10 janitors, but and tutors. But this one's going to be a different animal. It's a different animal. Mario Cristobal, he wants one. He wants one badly. He's not been able to beat Florida State. Let's do some best bets. This seems like a perfect time to just do some best bets, though, doesn't it? It always is a good time to do some bets. Let's talk about some spreads, though, first. Florida State right now is an underdog of 3 touchdowns at 20.5.
It's crazy.
Let me go and put that over right there. I'm going to go and put that in for all 3 of us.
That's fine.
That over's at 54.5.
Sorry to interrupt. Do we remember what it got to for the Orange Bowl? Did it get this high?
I can find it.
what, 63 to
No,
the
the
spread.
spread.
The spread.
I think it was like 10.5. I'm pretty sure.
Thought it bumped up some after the opt-outs, maybe to like
was like
16 and a half or something. But
I'll find it. Give me a couple minutes.
I don't know that it got to 20 and a half for a Florida State versus Miami rivalry game.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't Miami versus Akron like what they played during their non-conference schedule.
They're usually really tight. Usually is
really tight. Especially, considering Florida State has won the last 3 entering this game. I mean, Mike Norvell 2-0 against Mario Cristobal.
Mm-hmm.
Vegas doesn't even think FSU is going to keep it close.
No, they don't. Touchdown scores down here. I don't see any FSU player until you get down to Lawrence to Philly anytime. He's plus 135. Mark Fletcher.
No offensive touchdown last week. I mean, how do you?
Yeah. I'm trying to think here on who to.
D'Lo, you were right. It got to 18.5.
Man, that's wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mark Fletcher's the top favorite of scoring any time for Miami. Restrepo at number 2. They're at minus 160. Damian Martinez, Miami's running back, minus 150.
Can't no way I'm taking Restrepo. Didn't even.
Yeah, I would say a Cam Ward rushing touchdown. I wouldn't be upset with for this segment.
I was about to say, what are you talking
about? For the segment. Listen, man, I'm so over football season already.
Except for NFL.
Yeah, except for NFL. College, I'm checked out.
Mm-hmm.
I think Fletcher or Martinez score, but I don't know which one to go with.
I'm leaning. Fletcher has 4 touchdowns on the season. Martinez has 6. Let's go Martinez.
There you go.
Better odds.
Yep.
Where's our first drive punt, even if it didn't hit last week?
Yeah, remember we were talking about how high the field goal odds were, and that's what it ended up being.
I know. It's because they started at the 44-yard line or whatever it was. They only had to go 20 yards to kick it.
Yeah.
That's the betting game.
Where's the game? Maybe it's game specials.
No, if you're looking for the first drive punt, you're already on it. The drives.
That's drive same game parlay, but maybe I can do it. Hold on. What, Florida State's first drive result?
Yeah.
Punt?
I think it's the best money each week. It's hit 5 out of the 7 games.
That's really, though, the highest percentage of Florida State's chances of Mike Norvell in this offense getting down the field, though. Like that's like the top percentage, though.
Yeah.
So you're risking it there as well. Let's see.
Punt.
What's Cam Ward's passing? Oh my God! They have Cam Ward throwing over 318 yards in this game.
Yeah, I think he's had over 300 yards in every game this season.
Wow. Hold on.
I would say under, but I don't love it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. This defense is going to be out on the field for a long night.
And I think Mario is going to try and run up the score, if at all possible, just because of what happened 2 years ago.
Well, I will say Florida State's passing defense, it is in the top half of the country.
It's because everyone can just run on Florida State.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe the under hits.
I don't know.
No.
And if it's like a, no. How do I be generous with the score? 45-20 game in the fourth quarter. Maybe they take him out. He doesn't get it.
My over is the total points for the opponent, Dustin. So we're going to stay with that over there.
Wow. I'm fine with that.
Let's see.
We were talking about the passing yards.
Oh, okay. I was making sure, because that is what is going to happen there. Do we want to do a spread here for Miami?
Not really.
Dude, it's at 20.5.
Yeah. It's one of those, like, it's a rivalry game and anything could happen, even if none of us are expecting anything pleasant.
Are you meaning like cut it down from less than 20 or
Alternate
more
spread? Like I was going to say like a 16.5 kind of deal.
I just, I don't know.
Your
At that
parlay's
point, like
only
by then, what's the point?
parlay's only plus 166.
That's
Yeah,
a
that
lot.
I don't. What's it gonna get that to? Like plus. Oh, that's worse than I
It's
thought.
241, man. Not worth it there. Field goal specials. Here we go. Where's Ryan Fitzgerald at? We got special teams on here for Ryan Fitzgerald anywhere scoring? Yeah, do you want to do the race?
Hold on,
You want to do the
what's the
race
race
to
to 30?
30? Minus 3,500.
3,500.
Oh, man. Yeah, a lot of these aren't going to be really easy to do here, guys. It's leaning all in one direction or the other. Receiving props.
Ooh, under on Restrepo. I like that.
Under
90 and a half. When he had, what, 0 last year?
Yep, no catches.
All right, we'll throw it in there under. FSU
I like
secondary
that.
holds them tight. Under.
I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's a good one.
Yeah,
think
but
that's fine.
you know, Kevin Noles is covering him instead of Jarian Jones.
This is true. Maybe we'll get some Edwin Joseph magic.
Yeah, maybe so. Edwin Joseph comes in. Well, I mean, who's gonna be the? No, that one's too risky. First team to score. Anything can happen there.
What about the first scoring play for Florida State? Is there a field goal in there?
Let's see.
No, not the first scoring play in general, but Florida State's first scoring play. If you go down a few, I think. No.
You're on the right. You're on the right.
Oh, down here.
Yeah, what's the field goal plus 160, safety plus 5,000 is crazy.
A field goal that would put us at. Oh, you can't combine that.
What do you mean?
That's lame.
What do you mean we can't combine it?
It's not
That's
a
a good
same
point.
game parlay.
Yes,
dumb.
not. That's messed up. Well, we're at plus 436. So you do $10. That gets you $43. It pays for some beers at the game, right?
Yeah, you could buy like 1/87th of a Taylor Swift concert ticket. You know, just at Hard Rock Stadium last weekend.
Why do you know that?
My
He
wife
wanted to go.
begging me.
Oh, you were begging your wife to go? Well, you're going down to Miami. You get to see a football game, so you'll be all right. All right, let's finish off this show, gentlemen. Score predictions. I went first last week. I think
It's on me. No,
it's
it's
you.
on me. It's me then, Dilo.
What do you got? Florida State versus Miami. Primetime matchup. ESPN.
Hot take. Florida State scores their most points of the season in this game and still loses by around 20. I think this is going to be a lot like Miami's game against USF, where it starts out pretty sloppy and you're looking at the halftime score going, hey, anything's possible. And then in the second half, Miami just takes off. I think it's going to be one of those games. I've got Miami winning 45-23.
Wow. That's I'm not going to be that close.
Yeah, definitely not your typical rivalry game when you're thinking about a Florida State versus Miami matchup. I mean, this is just, it's so lopsided in one direction that even though it's a rivalry and anything can happen on any given Saturday, it's hard to believe Florida State has a legitimate shot at, you know, not just upsetting Miami, but keeping this thing reasonably close. And, you know, Mario Cristobal yet to defeat FSU as a head coach. Obviously, he played at Miami and went 3-1 against the Seminoles during his playing career. He's got an undefeated team, chance to make that first 12-team college football playoff. I think this is a statement game for Miami. Same thing for Cam Ward. Like I was talking about, you mentioned it early in the show, Logan, but you know, his previous involvement with FSU, and he took that visit to Tallahassee. You know, I'm sure he's got a couple things that he wants to get off of his chest as well. So I'm going to go Miami 48, Florida State 13.
That one was just on the top of your head there for the FSU score.
Mine was too, for the record.
Mm-hmm. Everybody said exactly what needed to be said. I got Florida State losing this game 54-17. So going a little bit more in the points of Miami. I could see it even getting worse, to be honest with you, but We'll see if Florida State can score 17, like you said. And y'all been saying Miami's defense isn't the most phenomenal, but that doesn't really matter to me. I mean, I don't care. They faced Cal and could barely do much against them, and it's Cal and it's Duke. You know, they're awful teams that FSU's facing that can't do much with anyways. So we'll see what happens, but I think Cam Ward and them are going to light it up there in Hard Rock, sadly. And yeah, that's going to do it for this week's episode. We'll be there. We'll have an instant reaction for you guys after we get done with press conference duties. So we'll get quotes from Mike Norvell, and if we get any players. But yeah, we'll be there. And make sure before you leave, hit the like button. Appreciate everybody listening to us as always. And this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify. If you're on YouTube right now, hit that like button, subscribe. Got tons of videos going out daily now. So make sure you guys go check those out. But yeah, we'll see you Saturday night after Florida State versus number 6 Miami. Peace.